Welcome. This is Jay Larson, CEO of the Idaho Technology Council. Thank you for joining us on April 2nd for our weekly podcast, Innovation Matters. Today, our guests are Paris Cole, CEO of TruckStop.com, Mayor Debbie Kling from the City of Nampa, and Duree Westover, Managing Principal at Experis, as well as Geri, Rackow, Director of Eastern Idaho Public Health District. We're so honored to be able to have them with us, and we're going to start right now with Paris Cole. Paris, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jay. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this has been kind of an interesting time for us. You probably, what's it been, Paris? 8 months ago, thereabouts, when you had the big acquisition where the majority of the company of TruckStop.com was purchased by an outside source, which now is you work for. And what's it like to be able to have, what's the major changes that have taken place in your life ever since Iconic has taken over and now have you as the CEO that has bought 60% of the company?
Yeah. By and large, there hasn't been a lot that's changed. And that's part of the reason why we decided to partner with Iconic and have them make an investment in the company. Is we wanted a partner that really believed in the company, believed in what we were doing and the direction that we're headed in. And so thankfully, they've really, for the most part, let us continue on the path that we were already heading down. I think what has changed a little bit has been some of the doors that they've helped open up for us, and some of the expertise that they've brought, surrounded us with, as we continue to grow and to provide more value to our customers.
Yeah, I know Iconic looked at you as a very rich opportunity because they saw the connections to supply chains and other things they had. So congratulations on that. So maybe we can take it another step here, Paris, with over the last month, let's say, have you noticed anything different on the transportation of goods across the United States, specifically with COVID-19 coming into play?
We have. It's been very interesting to watch. And by way of a little bit of background, in transportation and logistics, 2018 was a phenomenal year, probably the best year that the industry has had in maybe 20 or 30 years. So 2019, it dropped dramatically off of the 2018 high, but was still a relatively good year. What we saw over the last, call it 3 weeks to a month now, is that the volumes have actually started to increase to the point that they were nearly at the 2018 levels. So a lot of freight being moved through our marketplace, and typically our marketplace is used for the freight that's most difficult to find a truck to haul it. So that the fact that we're seeing so much freight on our site is an indication that there's a real challenge going on in the supply chain today. And so we've seen it going up over the last few weeks. Now, what's interesting is it's starting to slow down. And so for me, that's the real key, is as we come off of this peak over the last 3 weeks, how far does it drop? Does it drop back down to the pre-coronavirus level, which was still relatively high? Or does it drop even further below what we were seeing in 2019? So I don't have a crystal ball, but it will be interesting to watch what happens over the next few weeks. I think that will be really telling.
Well, I read something, and you help us with this, because I know our listeners know that you basically connect ability for people who need to have goods transported across the country, and those truckers that are able to do that, as well as payment and all those type of logistic operations. But isn't there a direct correlation usually with the goods transported across the country and the health of the economy and possibly going into a recession or something like that? Is there a direct correlation there?
I would say that there's a very strong correlation. And what's interesting, we've had a number of our own economists or other groups actually take a look at our data, and we actually see freight happens in the movement of goods. That indication happens about two quarters, somewhere between 2 and maybe as much as 5 quarters ahead of the rest of the economy. So when we start to see freight really take off, typically 2 or 3 quarters later, we'll see the GDP do well. Conversely, if freight starts to dry up, then the opposite effect we'll see GDP. So that for me is the real interesting thing here over the next couple of weeks is what's going to happen once the shelter-in-place orders become rescinded and people start to go back to work. How soon will that be able to happen, and what will happen with the freight? I think that will be pretty telling to what happens overall in the economy and over the next few quarters.
I see. So there's some lag that takes place there that it's about a 3-month lag to start seeing. So we should see that maybe next quarter or something like that potentially, right?
That's right. Yeah.
I don't know if most people know this, but I want you to know Paris is also the chair of the Idaho Technology Council, and as such, I get the opportunity to work with Paris a lot. So thanks, Paris, for all the work you do to support the technology industry. So let's go on the next step. So talk a little bit now about how COVID-19, obviously it's had significant impact on what's taking place in our economy right now. How have you responded internally with this, and how's it impacted truckstop.com?
Yeah, thankfully, we've been pretty well prepared for this. So we have about 565 professionals in the company, and the bulk of them, roughly about 400, have laptops and have been working from home with some frequency. So for us, it was that 165 or 170 professionals that have desktops that weren't accustomed to working from home. That for us was the real area of focus. And thankfully, because we have such a pretty large population of professionals working from home already in some form or fashion, we were able to make that migration with our desktop users and get them up and running pretty quickly. I think from the time that we made the decision to have everyone start working remotely to the time that we had 100% compliance, I think it was a matter of about 5 or 6 days. So, for us, it went pretty well, all things considered. But it presented some unique challenges. We have some of our professionals that work in pretty rural areas where internet connection isn't strong. So we had to be a little creative on how we supported them. And then a lot of our professionals don't have offices in their homes. And so we allowed those individuals that don't have a working office to take home their desktop, their monitors, or any other equipment that they might need to support their work. And so, thankfully, it hasn't been too much of an impact from us from a company perspective, but it's like I say, it's presented some unique challenges. Now, I will say there's been I will say there's been some pretty fun things come out of this. We use a number of different technologies to stay in touch one with another. Yeah, and so we've gotten a little creative. We've had Throwback Thursday is today. So we've had people posting on our Teams channel all of the memories and the fun times that they've had throughout the years at Truckstop. Tomorrow, in honor of the Final Four, which would have happened this weekend, everyone's wearing their favorite college colors, and so we're trying to make it fun and still stay engaged, even though we're all working remotely.
That's great. And you probably should be wearing your Bengal orange, right, from Idaho State?
Bengal orange tomorrow, absolutely.
Oh, fantastic. One quick question, and then we'll let you go but this is one where maybe we can focus on culture, because I know truckstop.com has amazing corporate culture. And you have said that you want all of your employees to head home at the end of the day saying, I learned something, I helped others be successful, and I wanted it to, and I worked to my fullest potential. Why is this type of employee culture so important to you?
To me, it's the company. That's how we are successful. If we have great people and we allow them to be great at the company. And so that's how I see us providing value to our customers. Yes, we're a technology company. Yes, we provide software as a service to them, but really at the end of the day, it's all about our people. And if they can be great, then we'll have a great company and we'll serve our customers successfully.
That's fantastic. Paris, we're going to have you on occasionally as we keep these Innovation Matters rolling through. And next one, we'll probably talk to you about the challenges of being a technology company in Idaho and what are the advantages. So we'll tee that up for the next time we talk. Does that sound good?
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Jay. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks, Paris. Appreciate your time. So thank you. And now we'll move over to Mayor Debbie Kling, the mayor of Nampa. Debbie, thank you for joining us. And I'm sorry you might not be able to see me, but I've had trouble with my audio, so I had to call in. So if you can't see me, you're probably fortunate at this point. But let's go ahead and move over to you. Welcome, Debbie. And what's it like being mayor of the city of Nampa?
Well, first of all, I can see you well, so all is good. And I trust that you can hear me fine. So, yes. You know what? It is great being mayor of Nampa. I love what I do. I love serving the citizens of our community and the collaborations that we have across municipalities and across the state. And so it's great. Love what I do.
Well, and you and I have known each other for several years, and I just think that you're wonderful. So thanks for all you are doing for the community of Nampa and the state of Idaho. Let me ask you a question. This is, at one point, and there have been, where Nampa has been recognized as one of the fastest growing communities, not only in Idaho, but in the United States. I mean, Nampa's had so many, it's poised and it's just positioned to do so many amazing things. What are your thoughts about why you're so bullish on Nampa? Could you talk about that a little bit?
Well, you know what? It's a great community. I like to say that Nampa is the best of what America was. And there's still a strong sense of a neighbor helping neighbor. And I think we were an ag community, and we're moving into more of manufacturing, high-tech manufacturing also, and food manufacturing. But I think we still have some of the work ethic that comes from who we were. And I hope we can retain that, because what's important to be a thriving city is that you've got a really good workforce and a good work ethic within that workforce. Because I know one of the greatest challenges that businesses face today is finding a workforce. And so if we can have a well-educated, trained workforce that has a really strong work ethic, then that is something that will put us on the map. And so that's one thing that I think we still have in the size community we have, moving from who we were to who we are today.
That is fantastic. Has there been anything that, since you've been mayor, that you've learned or done that you didn't anticipate?
Probably I know more about wastewater than I ever thought I would. The components of wastewater, the EPA compliance side, Idaho DEQ, getting our reuse permit. We had a bond, $165 million bond. We're in the midst of a $180 million wastewater upgrade. And boy, I understand more about wastewater than I would have thought. So that's been interesting. And the technology that's required plus the science, it's an incredible mix that is critical to dealing with wastewater. So
And
yeah,
dealing with
that's been fun.
and dealing with phosphates and stuff like that, right? I mean, it's crazy what you have to learn on all this stuff, isn't it? So
Yes. But, being innovative, because I think about innovation. And one thing that I thought about, I think we're the first city in the state of Idaho that actually has achieved the reuse permit to take that wastewater and put it into our irrigation canals. And we have pressurized irrigation within Nampa, so that water is now being used to irrigate our ground, which puts the water back in our own aquifer, and we get to use it as a city. Now, for some, they may go, ooh, that sounds terrible, but actually it is Class A water that we actually could put into fire sprinkler systems in industry as we grow in the manufacturing realm. So it's clean water. It's cleaner than any irrigation water you would find in a ditch. So yeah, so that's been fun to learn, and it's important to be innovative as we look at the city in different ways that we can be.
well, so Debbie, talk to us a little bit about this whole COVID-19 thing. I know that this has probably just taken your whole, this is kind of speaking of things that you didn't anticipate, this has probably taken your whole world and had you focus on this whole issue over the last 3 weeks. Talk to us about how this has impacted Nampa.
Well, needless to say, you're absolutely right. It has totally turned our world upside down. When I first came into office, we kind of joked and said we're like building a plane in flight, because there were a lot of policies and procedures that we really needed to still create within the city. But today, if ever, we are building a plane in flight, because both nationally at the state level and at the local level, we've been having to adjust our personnel policies, which I know that other people with businesses, trying to understand the Family Care Leave Act, the emergency one, and how it's shifted for those businesses that are trying to understand. And we were just talking about this a minute ago with Paris, having employees work from home. I tell you what's cool on the technology side, people are having to, like the webinar usage, you talk about the bandwidth that just skyrocketed overnight to the usage of the webinar and the technology we're using today. It stretched people because they had to learn something, for many, that they hadn't been using. And so it's been really good. I think there's a wonderful side of this extremely difficult, unfortunate place that we are. And that is that, like robot delivery, you probably saw that on the news, where they're actually getting it done and delivering groceries via robot. The digital world, moving into that, which is so critical. It helps us really think about some of the security issues, right, related to the technology and moving to fully digital in our communication. So it has stretched us. It brings out the best and worst in people. And that's been the interesting thing. And as an elected official, for me, it's, you want to make the best decision you can with the information you have, but that information is changing every day. So needless to say, it's a historical and it's an unprecedented time. But when we look back, I think we're going to see a lot of good that came from it. And so, you have to look at the positive, not just the negative.
That's a very good thing. And what I love about what you do, Mayor, is you look at things through a very optimistic eye. So that's totally awesome. Now, maybe the last question that I think would be, what are you, well, I have two really quickly, but next one, what do you think anticipate what's going to take place over the next 4 months, 4 weeks in Nampa with COVID-19? I know we're this uncharted waters, but what are your thoughts there?
Well, it's a difficult time as we're tracking the businesses that are closed, those that, and they did just decide to close, right, because they just couldn't stay open. I think economically, it's extremely stretching to our businesses. As a city, we've set up it's our emergency arm, which is called Nampa Ready, and we're focused on things like food accessibility, health and wellness, business, and housing and shelter. On the business side, we're really working to educate our businesses. We held a webinar yesterday to give the latest information from the SBA, because there's a new deadline and some opening of funds, and been sitting on White House calls too. But it's so important that right now we provide the information to our businesses to help them succeed. And so that economic engine within our community. So we're really focused right now. I'm actually trying to focus not only on managing the virus and all the policies around that and what needs to be closed and open, but also looking at the economic side for our business community, what we need to do to support them, helping encourage shop local, support your local businesses, but then also looking at the recovery side so that we can, when we can move forward, we're ready to move forward.
Oh, so this is fantastic because I really like those two-pronged approach, the health of the citizens of Nampa, right? And then the economic prosperity of Nampa, because there's going to be a gap here that we're going to have to sit there, because who would have anticipated that we would have come to it? I mean, I remember 3 weeks ago when I'm sitting up in North Idaho and they have the announcement that the NBA is canceling its season. I'm going, are you kidding me? Then the NCAA comes out, and then we have all these other things that come. I mean, it's just crazy what's taking place. But it sounds like Nampa is well, that you're providing the leadership to be able to help the economic gap that's going to be covered, right?
We're going to do the best we can. The one thing that I realized through this all is that not one person can do it. Our businesses, it takes the collaboration of the Small Business Administration, the Chamber. It takes everybody coming together on the housing and on the health and the food insecurities. I have to say, I am so incredibly impressed and proud of all the community members and the nonprofits. And I will say the elected officials, the emergency management teams that are all coming together and working together. This is not a partisan issue, and it's awesome because it isn't. We don't even address that side of it. We are all collaborating and working together, and I'm so impressed both from the state level down to the local level and our citizens at the work that's being done. And you know what, we'll come through it in Idaho because as we all know, Idaho's a great state. And I'm proud to be a part of the state and our local Nampa community because we've got great people. And if anybody can say, okay, how are we going to roll up our sleeves and come out of this well, I believe we can do it.
Well, Mayor, you are just absolutely a visionary, and the bright light you bring to Nampa is inspiring. So why don't we have you on another time? We'll probably in another month or so, we'll have another update and we'll see how things are going, and you can give us an update in maybe a month from now. Does that sound good?
Sounds great. Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part. Thank you for the work you're doing.
All right. Thank you so much, Debbie. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good day. Well, now we'd like to thank Mayor Kling for being part of this. And now we're going to move over to Duree Westover. And Geri is the managing principal at Experis and is in Sun Valley right now, where the first community outbreak of the coronavirus was identified. She will talk to us about, talk with us about what's happening in Sun Valley right now, and also talk about how Experis continues to fill the need of talent in Idaho during these times. Duree, welcome.
Hi, Jay. Thank you for having me.
We're so glad. So you're up in Sun Valley right now, right?
I am. I had a pre-planned spring break with my daughter, and we drove up on the 13th, and that night was our first corona case announced by the state. And by the end of the weekend, it turned into being the epicenter for everything, and we didn't know it. We hung out here, and a few days later, Governor Little had put it in a shelter-in-place scenario and not leave Blaine County. So abided by the rules, and I guess there's worse places to be shelter-in-place. I'm in Haley and working remote, and just like the rest of my team and a lot of people in the United States.
Well, congratulations. I know that's kind of unusual timing. It shows really quickly what happens when. My understanding is I have a next door neighbor that told me that they actually lived up there and they got out the day before you did, but there was a big wedding from Kirkland, Washington, and then the bride was a nurse that ended up going back. The party of 200 converged on Sun Valley, and then she went home to Kirkland and found out that she had the coronavirus, and now it's caused one of the I think, #1 communities in the United States as far as per capita having the coronavirus. So it's kind of crazy how that works out, isn't it?
Yeah, it was same story I heard. It was some type of social event, and to be such a small community, it's quickly, transfers from people to people. So unfortunate. But again, shelter in place. Haven't seen other than out for a run and on a trail, hike with the dogs. Haven't really seen anybody except my daughter. So it's all good.
Yeah.
Make it.
Well, I'm glad you have your daughter with you. Well, let's talk about Experis and the talent that you see for the state of Idaho. So tell us a little bit about what Experis does, and then we can talk a little bit more about the talent equation for Idaho.
Oh, sure. Well, we deliver people, projects, and expertise to help our IT clients meet their key initiatives. So people like Paris, who you just had on, who have great growth, and they need technical talent, they may lean on a company like Experis to provide that talent. So the two areas that we really are most valuable to a lot of the Treasure Valley companies we've worked with for over 20 years, in fact, here in the downtown area, is in the professional IT recruiting, staffing area for very critical key talent. Maybe they'll use them for contingent, they'll use them for a length of time, 6 months, a year, knowing they've got a critical software development project that they need support with. Also, though, Jay, clients, if they don't use us for just the recruiting, they may use us for project solutions. So maybe they want to have us do a component of their software development lifecycle, say testing, be able to take that either in an onshore environment at one of our dev centers here in the US, or we as a global company, our footprint very wide in 80 countries. We've got offshore capabilities as well. And then anything really in that workforce stack, if you see something that maybe outplacement. So when a company maybe is looking to maybe downsize, and that's more current right now than it ever was, how do you gracefully downsize your teams and support them through that process? So a lot of things in workforce is what Experis does. Sweet spots, really software dev. And we work with, small emerging companies. I think of one of your members, Dan DeGloss with PlexTrack. That's such a great run right now. Yeah. We've helped him, he's a team of a few, all the way to being a global partner to example Micron worldwide.
Well, so talk about what you see of the talent demands in the tech industry currently.
Well, pre-COVID-19, thriving, as everybody knows. We had close to zero unemployment, jobs sitting open because there wasn't enough talent, candidate market, shift gears, what a difference 3 weeks makes, unprecedented change. We've got a really big research engine, and this is the biggest workforce shift that we have seen since World War II. So you're seeing some industries be just critically affected, dramatically affected, and then you're seeing other ones uptick. People like Paris described in his logistics world hasn't been affected terribly. We're seeing just big adjustments, big pivots with other companies, trying to help them find their way is what we've been able to do.
So Duree, if you're sitting there, talk about what industries. I mean, are the industries that are more related to possibly service are the ones that are being impacted the most right now, or is that hotels?
Yeah.
Right.
Your
food industry.
Anything in hospitality, anything in the food and beverage when it's more in the restaurant scenarios is being hit. A lot of the retail where there's face-to-face retail is being hit. The areas where we're seeing a uptick, of course, naturally, healthcare and anything related to healthcare, pharma, logistics, fintech, anything with e-commerce, online ordering. You think about 83% of our United States has shifted to working from home, remote, which 3 or 4 weeks ago, that wasn't happening. Everybody's getting online. The real winner is the internet here. I'm sad to think what would be in our world now if we didn't have such robust broadband and internet, we would be in a completely different space. So we're seeing a lot of shift happening there. We've got companies, and I manage, by the way, the Pacific Northwest, so some big cities, Portland, Seattle, as well as, Boise, Salt Lake. We're seeing some companies move from a grocery company here that's headquartered, asking us to help them find 2,000 people. A very large distribution center out of Seattle asking us to be part of that, find us 100,000 people. So,
wow.
And then you see the local company, Vacasa, that has dual headquarters here in Portland, and, unfortunately having to let some people off, but we're seeing our companies absorb some of those folks, which is great to see.
Yeah, it is the hospitality side, but then it's interesting because you take a look at everything on anything that has to do, like you were talking about, e-commerce, anything, those type of things are, and even I was talking with Albertsons. In fact, next 2 weeks, we'll have somebody from Albertsons on, Andy Scoggin, and he's talking about how large their business has been up. I mean, it's been up very significantly over the last 3 weeks. So, so last question for you, Duree. So here we have a tech industry that's been really thriving, like you said, before 3 weeks. And now we've got some uncertainty. What do you think the biggest things from a talent standpoint, if you're talking to the tech industry about that, what are the biggest things we need to focus on as we bridge across this gap of what's happening with COVID-19?
Well, I think there are some silver linings in a very dire environment that we're living right now. We've got the ability to show that remote workers, particularly in IT, can still remain very, very productive. In fact, their output can be higher in distributed environments. So you can still run agile teams, you can still run your stand-ups, you can still have the productivity. So I met with a client by video with one of my reps last week, and he said, we are still hiring and we will be having a lot more definitive needs here shortly. We want your help to do that. He said, what it's helped us do is the naysayers that remote workers, it doesn't work. It's a proof of concept that's being forced upon all of us right now. And we're showing great output in being able to keep our projects on track and even taking on new ones with our distributed workforce. So Jay, what I think is going to happen is we will, as a community, if we open our eyes to remote workers, be able to access talent anywhere they are and have them bring their great genius to our market. And I think that's going to be the win for the Treasure Valley.
So this distributive model will be even stronger, and our ability to be able to utilize technology a little bit more, even with the application of how we utilize a workforce, will be much more robust. I like that. So, Duree, thank you so much. Would you do us a favor and make sure that enjoy the Ketchum fresh air and the time with your daughter, and we'll look forward to having you come back to Boise in the near future, and we'll have you back on the show to talk more about talent. Does that sound good?
Sounds great. Thank you for having me, and thanks for all the good work you do, Jay.
All right. Thanks, Duree. Appreciate you. We're going to shift gears here, and we get the opportunity to welcome Geri Rackow, Director of Eastern Idaho Public Health Care District. Geri is located over in Idaho Falls. Geri, welcome to Innovation Matters.
Thank you, Jay. I'm glad to be here this afternoon.
Fantastic. I see, Geri, that you are not going to join us by your picture, but just by your name here. Is that okay?
Well, I hope it's okay for you. I didn't even think about that. I'm not set up with a web camera, so technology. We have a long way to go within our health district to get up to the speed of using all the technology that's available to us, and certainly that has changed in the last couple of weeks of how we're doing business.
Geri, I'm glad you said that, because I'm going to make sure in the future that I ask if you have a video set up, because I didn't even ask you that. That's my fault. So apologize to you. So, hey, this is so good. You and I met for the first time yesterday, and we had some great discussions about what's taking place. And I say this because as a person that kind of understands a lot of the way the state of Idaho operates on the state government, I wasn't very educated when it comes down to how the state is organized to support the health of its citizens from a public health standpoint. Can you talk to us a little bit about how Idaho is organized and why we're recognized as being one of the top states nationally in this space?
Yeah, you bet, Jay. And I would just share, first of all, that you're not alone for not being familiar with public health. And as I shared yesterday, a lot of the time when public health is doing their work, it's in the background and making sure everyone stays healthy. But it's in times like this, of this pandemic, that the work that we do comes to the forefront. In Idaho, public health is uniquely structured into 7 health districts. And each district covers from 4 to 8 counties in the state. So between all 7 health districts, we cover every one of our state's 44 counties. In my health district, we have 8 counties, actually the largest geographic region covered in the state. And public health is not a state agency. We're independent governmental agencies that are a partnership between state and local government. We do get funding from the state general fund, but we also are supported from our local counties that we serve. We're governed by individual governing boards, and although the 7 health districts are independent and autonomous, we do work very closely together. All 7 health district directors meet regularly and try to coordinate the services that we provide to be as consistent as possible across the state. So regardless where a resident lives in Idaho, they can expect some consistent level of public health services. Not all states are organized like this, and you'll find some states that have hundreds of health departments or city or county health departments. Idaho is unique in this way, in the structure with the districts that cover the whole state.
Well, and you've got 8 counties, and some are very rural, and then you'll go down to Idaho Falls, and that's got to be quite the challenge when you take a look at servicing all of these rural versus urban areas, right?
Yeah, and that's one of the benefits of having individual separately governed districts, that the Board of Health can determine what is in the best needs of their residents in their locations. And so in our health district, we have Clark County, that is a frontier county, Lemhi and Custer County, same, very rural areas, all the way to Idaho Falls, that is more urban. So the benefit is that we can tailor our services to the needs of our individual communities.
All right. So now let's talk a little bit about what's happened in your life over the last, since COVID-19 and this pandemic. How has this changed what you do, and talk a little bit about how it's impacted Eastern Idaho?
Okay. Well, just starting out with our regular day-to-day activities, we do some clinical services, reproductive health and immunization services. We do a lot of environmental health work, which involves inspecting food establishments, issuing septic permits, doing land development work, inspecting child care facilities. We provide the WIC program, which is a supplemental nutrition program for women, infants, and children. We do health education and, of course, public health preparedness and epidemiology. So in our day-to-day work, we've seen a lot of changes in programs where activity has certainly decreased with the stay-home order that's in place. And I would say I think people are doing a good job of following that and not doing non-essential activities. So our WIC program is continuing to function, but we have started effectively tomorrow. We'll actually be doing that all telecommuting with our WIC staff. So they'll be serving participants still, but it will be over the phone while we navigate this pandemic. Some of our clinical services, we're certainly needing to continue some of those, but have changed our practices to ensure that our staff and the patients are as safe as can be. Where we've really seen a big change is in our epidemiology and preparedness work. Typically, we have had one full-time epidemiologist, and here in Eastern Idaho, we've only had 16 cases test positive for COVID right now, but we know that number is going to grow. We've established a hotline that people from anywhere can call and get information about COVID-19. And so we've redeployed some of our staff that maybe their normal day-to-day duties have declined, redeployed them to helping in other areas of our response to the pandemic.
So do you see then the work that's taking place right now with, basically having people work from home and all of the other initiatives that have been taking place from Governor Little and other communities? Is it helping right now? Have you seen much a movement with respect to having the COVID-19 not propagate as much? Any thoughts there?
It's hard to tell, right now. It's only been in place for a week, but the more that we follow it, the better benefit that we're going to see with it slowing the spread of the disease across our state. In Idaho Falls and in Eastern Idaho, all of Eastern Idaho, we are a little bit behind the rest of the state in the number of cases that we're seeing. And so if we get people that are continuing compliance with the stay-home order and limiting that movement and interaction with others, we have a better chance of slowing that down so that we can really have an impact on the curve that we keep talking about, slowing the cases down so that we're not overwhelming our healthcare system. And we do hope that, it has that impact, but it's going to take every one of us playing our role to help make that successful.
If you could look forward right now and say, okay, I think Idaho is supposed to be one of the plateau or at the highest peak of the curve. It's supposed to take place in the next 3 weeks. Do you see that this pandemic will still stay in a very good state over in Eastern Idaho, or are you thinking that this is, there's been a lot of forecasts that this is going to be much more of an issue? What do you think is going to happen in Eastern Idaho?
Well, I certainly think that over time we are going to continue to see increase in cases. When we hit that peak, it is really hard to predict right now. We have, scholars and medical professionals and others that are working on modeling for the state of Idaho that will hopefully in the very near future be able to give us some more data that we can base some projections on. And again, we are going to see increases in cases here. Just how quickly that happens will be impacted on people continuing to do the social distancing and staying home as much as possible.
Well, I got to tell you, Geri, I was really impressed. I was talking with Dana Briggs and also with Mayor Casper, and they speak very highly of what's taking place with the Eastern Idaho Public Healthcare District and what you're doing to be able to help protect the citizens and also look for ways to be able to make sure that you're very proactive on that front. So congratulations on that. Let me ask the last question. What can we do as a tech industry to help support what you do?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to Mayor Casper and Dana Briggs, but it really is a partnership, not just with Eastern Idaho Public Health, but with all of our healthcare providers, our emergency managers, our counties and our cities. It is truly a joint effort for us to all to be able to respond to protect our communities as much as possible. As far as tech goes, I would say that anything that the technology field can do to help in Idaho specifically with the production of PPE, the personal protective equipment that our healthcare providers are going to need to get us through this challenging times that are ahead. We need all the help we can get. And I hear lots of great things that are going on around us, and would maybe make that challenge to others in Idaho. If there's something that you think you could do to help in that battle to make more PPE available, that is something that is desperately needed. You know, in my office, like I said, you know, we're not used to using a lot of technology to do our daily services, but we're now doing some telehealth work, and I've never used Zoom more than I have in the last 2 weeks. So other things I'm thinking are like apps that could help be able to have communication with people, you know, similar to AlertSense, that we can provide emergency messaging to people within our communities as we look at preparedness efforts. So those are just a few of the things that come to my mind.
No, thank you for that. AlertSense is Vaughn Hansen with AlertSense has been a big part of the Idaho Technology Council. He's just came off as our chair, and we are pleased that you're utilizing that technology and even referenced it. So that's totally awesome. And we'll look for ways that we can help support you. We've got a technology quick response force that we're working with right now to be able to see what we can do to help you and assist you in any way. So Geri, thank you so much. We really appreciate all that you do, and for enlightening us and informing us more about what these public health districts do throughout the state. Have a great day, will you?
Okay. Thank you so much. You do the same.
Thanks, Geri. All right, so we hope you join us next week when we hear from Mark Wilden, who's the CIO at Idaho Central Credit Union, and also Mayor Rebecca Casper will give us even more insight of what Geri was talking about, as she is the mayor of Idaho Falls. And we'll also hear from a member of our federal delegation. Thanks to Paris, Mayor Debbie, Duree, and Geri for being wonderful guests on Innovation Matters. This is Jay Larson with the Idaho Technology Council, keeping you connected with industry and government. Because in Idaho, innovation matters. Be safe and keep innovating. We'll talk to you next week.